Okay, welcome to this explainer. Let's just dive right in, shall we? There's this really common misconception that the intelligence you're born with is just, well, what you're stuck with forever, like it's a fixed baseline. But honestly, that is completely false. IQ is not a fixed number at all. Think of it more like a muscle, and just like any muscle in your body, it can be actively trained. So today we're going to look at the exact blueprint used by some of history's absolute greatest minds to literally elevate their cognitive performance.
Modern neuroscience has essentially proven this. Your brain can physically adapt, it can rewire itself, and it actually grows. You can train it. And what's really cool is this is the exact same way legendary figures, we're talking Leonardo da Vinci, Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, it's how they trained theirs. They weren't just born with some kind of magical powers, right? They actively cultivated very specific daily practices that physically built up their brain power.
So here is our agenda for today, the 5 habit stack they use to do it. Number 1, obsessive curiosity. 2, deep focus. 3, explaining it simply. 4, embracing failure. And 5, mental rest.
Okay, let's dive into this. Habit 1, obsessive curiosity.
7,000. Let that number just sink in for a second. That is the staggering amount of notebook pages Leonardo da Vinci filled during his lifetime. 7,000 pages. And here's the kicker. They weren't just filled with beautiful art or, masterful sketches. A massive chunk of those pages were heavily, and I mean heavily, dedicated to just asking questions.
He was constantly writing down literal curiosities. Things like, why does water spiral? Or how do birds fly? See, Da Vinci wasn't smart simply because he had all the answers. He was brilliant because he literally never stopped asking the questions. So the absolute crucial point here is that every single time you genuinely ask why, instead of just accepting an answer at face value, you're physically building new neural connections in your brain.
So how do we actually apply this today? Well, it's super simple. Step 1, start a notebook. It could be physical, could be digital, doesn't matter. Step 2, force yourself to write down one real question a day about something you don't fully understand. And step 3, actually try to answer it. Just doing this simple daily habit flips your brain from being a passive receiver of information into this active, growing machine.
All right, moving on to habit 2, deep, uninterrupted focus. This really shifts the spotlight onto Isaac Newton and his specific method for absolute breakthrough thinking. Now, Newton didn't discover the laws of gravity while he was multitasking. During the Great Plague of London, he retreated out to the countryside. He spent months, literally months, entirely cut off from the world in total isolation, no interruptions, zero distractions. And guess what? That is exactly when his biggest, most world-changing discoveries happened.
And this brilliantly illustrates the difference between how our brains are actually meant to work versus how we often treat them today. Deep focus gives your brain the time and the space it requires to form truly complex ideas. But our modern reality? It's just constant notifications. Every ping, every buzz on your phone, it literally snaps a fragile thought right in half. A notification is basically just a thought you never get to finish.
So here is your challenge for habit 2, 90 minutes. I want you to try scheduling just one uninterrupted 90-minute block a day. And I mean truly uninterrupted, like leave your phone in a completely different room type of uninterrupted. You've got to give your brain the unbroken runway it actually needs to take off and form those complex thoughts.
Next up, habit 3, simplifying ideas.
This habit is all about Albert Einstein's process for truly mastering a subject. Now, you might have heard of the Feynman technique. It's this highly effective method taught in a lot of top universities today, and it's defined basically as simplifying complex ideas until a child could understand them. Einstein used this exact framework constantly. His philosophy was super clear. If you can't explain something simply, well, you don't actually understand it yet.
Because here's the thing, true intelligence is never about just sounding smart. It's not about using dense jargon to defend your ego or to intentionally confuse people. No, true high-level intelligence is entirely about making the complicated accessible. It's taking all that noise and distilling it down into absolute clarity.
So your micro-directive for this habit is really straightforward. The next time you learn something new, force yourself to summarize it out loud in exactly one sentence. If you stumble, or actually if it takes you a whole paragraph to explain it, that means you need to go back and study it again.
Which brings us to habit 4, embracing failure. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that to train our IQ, we really need to shift our perspective on what it actually means to be wrong. We tend to think of geniuses as just being perfect right out of the gate, but all these iconic giants,
They failed constantly before achieving greatness. I mean, Da Vinci abandoned dozens of unfinished projects. Isaac Newton's early theories were dead wrong more than once. And Einstein, he literally spent a decade, 10 whole years, chasing frustrating dead ends before he finally cracked general relativity. See, high IQ thinking does not mean avoiding mistakes. It means treating failure purely as data. Instead of defensively protecting your pride, defending your ego when you make an error, you just update your mindset rapidly. The very moment you stop fearing being wrong, you start learning infinitely faster than everyone else around you.
And finally, habit 5, recovery and mental rest.
Now, this habit is totally counterintuitive, especially in our modern hustle culture, right? But it might actually be the most important key to unlocking breakthroughs. Let's draw a stark contrast here, because trust me, not all rest is created equal. Fake rest is doom scrolling on your phone, reading endless comments, just consuming more and more data. That is not resting your brain. Actual downtime is taking a quiet walk without your headphones, taking a warm bath, or just getting proper sleep. It's during this actual disconnection that your brain subconsciously processes everything you've learned and starts connecting those complex ideas together completely behind the scenes.
Geniuses didn't grind 24/7. Man, I love this quote so much because it just shatters the modern myth of the constant hustle. These historical figures, they worked in intense, fiercely focused bursts, but they strictly protected their resting time. They knew that downtime isn't laziness. Downtime is where the real insight happens.
So, let's look at the genius habit stack.
The ultimate realization here is that Da Vinci, Newton, and Einstein, they were not a different species with magical powers. They just trained their minds differently. So let's visually recap this whole 5-habit stack so you can really lock this framework in your memory. 1. Obsessive curiosity, always asking why. 2. Deep focus, giving yourself those uninterrupted 90-minute blocks. 3. Simplifying, using the Feynman technique to distill ideas. 4. Embracing being wrong, treating failure as rapid data. And 5. Real rest, allowing your brain the actual downtime it needs to synthesize the whole shebang.
So here is my final provocative question for you to take away from this explainer today. Which of these 5 habits will you start today? You don't have to overhaul your whole life overnight. Just pick one. Pick just one of these habits and start actively training your mind right now. Intelligence isn't fixed, so get out there and start building it.